So I started out with this. So what I hope to give you today is a little bit of background on some basic guidelines for writing proposals and learning to prepare some professional proposals in order to win projects. As we all know, the estimate's one thing, but how you present that estimate in a situation where you don't have a standard bid form or a bid form provided by your owner or general contractor, how you present that's very important. So I don't want to say I'm an expert in writing proposals, but I've been doing it a long time. I like to write. I know it's kind of quirky, sounds weird, but I've enjoyed the writing since I was a kid, so I kind of take pleasure in trying to put together the right language and the right verbiage to drive home your points in win a project. So with that, real quick, I just want to, what is an estimator? I mean, we're a proposal writer, we're a stake eliminator, we're also business development, and we're a problem solver. So you put all those four things together, and that's kind of what we do. Here, do the work. So today we're going to touch on just a couple of types of proposals that I've been involved in over my career. The number one type, which is probably the one most of you want to hear about, is a scope letter or a price proposal. Keeping in mind the difference between price and cost, right? So I call them price proposals. It's not a cost proposal. You're not telling your owner what your cost is, you're telling what your price is. Everybody understand the difference? The second type of proposal is a qualification proposal. We're seeing these more and more in the industry now. Owners, municipal agencies, government entities, they want to know ahead of time who's going to look at their work, who's bidding their project. And in certain cases, they want to know and make sure that you're approved and a viable entity to do their work. So we're seeing these what we call pre-quals more and more. We'll touch on that just a little bit, kind of what we see as a basic format, and kind of how to pull one of those types of proposals together. And then the third type of proposal we're seeing, and we're getting more and more involved in, is what we call a technical or a collaborative delivery submittal. You guys probably know it as design build. It's kind of a catchphrase now. We like to call it collaborative delivery because you're working as a collaborative team to build a project. Starting to see a lot more of this in the industry. So I thought I'd touch on that just a little bit and give you guys some basic guidelines on what we see as a basic organizational schedule or organizational tool for a design build. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the scope letter and cost proposal. At the end of your packet, I attached a copy of a scope letter I had written recently. It's got some generic information as far as the owner and the cost and all that, but the content of the proposal is real. It was a recent proposal we put together. We're doing a project for an owner that we do a lot of work with. So, first thing you want to do is make sure you put your proposal on letterhead. Send it in a blank piece of paper or anything like that. If you have some sort of letterhead, company name, anything at all, show that, provide it. You see at the top here we've got the old Foley Company logo. This was written, I know the date says yesterday just because it automatically updates, but this was written before we started transitioning to the Interfab name. That's our logo, our address, and that right-hand corner. And let's start the presentation. The second thing is the date. Get the date right. The last thing we want to see is a date of 5 days ago for the proposal that's due today. The only reason for that is because sometimes you see that date when you're reviewing a proposal, and the owner may think, or the general contractor may think that you wrote this so far ago, if there are any recent changes to the plans and specs, you may not have caught those changes incorporated. So have the date current. Sometimes the day before is not bad if you write it the day before, but make sure your date's current. Third thing is recipient. Understand who you're sending this to. That's a big deal. I see a lot of scope letters from suppliers that are made out to who may concern, or they just put estimating up here. To me, that's a turnoff. I want to know you, and I want you to know me, right? And I want to know that you know me. So know who your recipient is. Understand that. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. Ask for the contact information. Ask for an address. If you don't know exactly who to address the proposal to, find out. They don't mind that. I personally like a personalized proposal. I don't know how you all feel about it, but I like to know, because that way I know the person's in tune with who we are and what we're trying to do in the project. Most importantly, the subject line. The subject line should be fairly brief. You should be should describe what it is you're providing. So in this particular case, we are providing a response to this RFP, and that was the name of the RFP. So when you're looking at putting together your proposal, know the project name, quote it accurately. Did anybody have any copies?
I can make more if we need more than one. I have 2 left. Do we need more than 2? Yeah, we need a bunch more.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a few more.
So get the project right. It's about presentation, okay? A lot of times the proposal is all about the look to the presentation. So get the project name right. You'd be surprised to say I'm doing a job for Joe Blow wastewater treatment plant, and I get a proposal that says Joe Blow. Well, okay, I get it, but we like to know that you understand, that you know what project it is you're bidding, and you understand the scope. To me, this is pretty important. It describes what you're getting. Next thing is have an introductory paragraph. It doesn't have to be real long. It doesn't have to tell your life story or tell the whole story of your company, but give a brief introductory paragraph. Tell them what you're proposing on. Maybe even thank them early for the opportunity up front. Let them know you're thankful and grateful for the opportunity. Sometimes it's appropriate to put up here. But write a nice introduction paragraph. Here you can see we're telling them that we're going to replace these 150-foot diameter rotary distributors. And they're brief little scope on exactly what we're doing within this scope. And then we get into the description of the project, description of our scope. And this is where you want to make sure that you're conveying to your owner, general contractor, what it is you're doing on the project. All right? You don't need a 2-page, 3-page description. A lot of times, if the scopes get too long, you tend to wander, right? Anybody read? I mean, your mind tends to wander. You're like, okay, I just want to get right. What's the price? And they start flipping. They skip to your scope. So have it well organized. Identify with different fonts, whether underline, italics, bold. Identify some things that you want to pull out of the proposal, you want to take their eyes to, and then organize it to where it's easy to read. You see, we don't have a lot of run-on sentences, right? We've got bullet points, so you go boom, 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 boom. You can follow this pretty clearly, march right down the scope of work, and it's easy to read, and you don't have long, drawn-out sentences. So one of my points to scope writing is be clear, but be concise. Right? There's a time when you want to describe exactly what you're doing. It may take a few words. There's also ways to get that point home and be concise. Because again, the last thing you want to do is lose their attention. Right? This is your one opportunity to sell what you're doing. This is your one opportunity to tell them you've met the scope, or you're exceeding the scope. Maybe you've got something in here that sets you apart from the competition. This is your opportunity. So, specific items included, and then we broke it down a little bit more. We talked about some of the materials that were actually included from our supplier, Aviva. Okay, so we're very specific in what we're supplying. We made sure that all our bullet points met the spec. The spec told us, hey, this mechanism has to have this, 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 and this. And we went through, we said, hey, we got this stuff. Any questions about this so far? No? All right. Let's be giving good information. Feel free, hey, this is an interactive deal too. Feel free, if you got questions, jump in at any time, okay? One thing I didn't talk about, I guess, is sometimes you get into situations, this was a lump sum proposal. Anybody know what lump sum means? Right? You give them one number. Sometimes you may get in a situation where an owner gives you a bid form that's got breakout items, what we call unit prices, or other times they may want you to provide those unit prices. And this would be the spot you want to do that in your scope description. You might say, hey, I've got a unit price for putting up so many feet of a metal stud wall, square feet, or I've got a unit price for cubic yard for earthwork. So, okay, this would be the area you probably want to put that in your scope letter. A couple things to talk about in terms of your scope. There's a fine line, in my opinion, between giving too much information and not enough. All right, and I think that more.
Yep. And the other one I handed out didn't have the back side of the first page, the back page. So I'm gonna get that. You guys have the last one, right? The extra one.
Who else needs copies? Anybody? There's extras here, I guess, if anybody wants to take them back.
See the back page.
Where was that? Okay. I think there's a fine line sometimes between giving too much information and not enough. For example, let's say you're going to lay 8-inch pipe. You got 1,000 feet of it. It's a lump sum bid, right? And you tell them I've got 1,000 feet of pipe. Then they change the scope and they want to take pipe out, right? And it's a lump sum bid. Then you're at the mercy of them arguing back and forth about what the deduct should be or something like that, right? You told them, hey, I've only got 1,000 feet of my proposal. Sometimes you just want to tell them, hey, I've got 8-inch PVC pipe. If they ask you, you say, well, how much do you have? Say, I've got 24. Okay? That's another example of getting too specific. I see some people tell them, hey, I've got overtime included in my bid. There's a time and a place for that. If the job requires overtime, and it says it in the scope of work, hey, we require you to work 5 10s, then you want to validate that. I've seen some estimators think that overtime is needed, right? They put it in their bid, they put it in the scope letter, and what happens at the end of the job if the overtime is not used? Does anybody know what would happen? Your owner goes, hey, you told me you had overtime figured in this bid, but you didn't have to use it. I want that money back. Well, you figured overtime in your estimate, right? You didn't have to use it. You should be able to pocket that money, right? It's how you execute the job. Maybe you executed the job better, didn't need the overtime, right? That should be a win-win for you, not necessarily the owner. So there's a fine line, in my opinion, between giving too much information in these proposals. Does that make sense? So you want to be clear and concise, but tell them what they need to know. Right? So don't give them your trade secrets. Any questions on that? Okay.
How do you get them to read your scope? We do a full scope, like a 4-page scope with our bids.
Right.
And it never fails that when they come back to us, it's like they missed half the stuff that I put in it.
Well, that's a good question. How do you get somebody? I guess they have to want to read your scope. There's no way I would take a scope letter from a subject supplier and not read it. No way. I do it all the time. It takes a lot of time and effort, believe me, a lot of time and effort, but you have to do it. You know, I don't know. I guess you just call them up and say, hey, we're giving you a scope letter for a reason.
Right.
Please read through it and understand what.
Are you saying that, like, when you were talking about quantities, do you think it's better to add quantities to your bid? I mean, to your scope, to line them out?
You mean add like inflate?
Put your quantities in your scope. Like, I had so many yards, I had so many square foot, or
You can as long as you understand that they may hold you to that, right?
Right.
And if you don't do that exact amount of work, in a lump sum proposal, personally, I wouldn't do it.
No.
Unless they specifically request it. If they
Right.
request it, you have to comply, right? But if for me, in a lump sum proposal, I don't think I would do it. I would just list out, hey, I've got the 8-inch PVC pipe that's necessary, I've got the 12-gauge wires necessary, I've got so many tons of rebar, whatever, you know,
Gotcha.
if needed. But typically in a lump sum proposal, you can see here, I don't tell them how many bolts we got, I don't tell them how many flushing gates, I just say, hey, we got it. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, don't you think too also it depends on the time in which you get the scope letter?
I'm sorry?
Don't you think a lot of it depends on the time, like a general contractor gets the scope letter? You don't want it 15 minutes before you're putting all your numbers together.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and we're gonna touch on that
Okay.
in just a little bit about allowing time. Yeah, planning your scope letter out. No, it's part of your estimating process, right? We have standard operating procedures for our estimating department that we follow. And part of that is knowing your time, right? Look ahead, say I've got 3 weeks to turn this in, it's gonna take me 2 weeks for my estimate, a day to review, then I've gotta draft my scope letter, have it reviewed, right? And I wanna get my scope out to whoever 2 days ahead of time, 3 days ahead of time. We typically like to see them 48 hours in advance. We do a lot of technical work, water, wastewater treatment, power plants, industrial type plants where there's a lot of technical materials, equipment, and scopes, and we want to see that early because we've got to do our job in making sure they've got everything that the specifications are required. So yeah, from that standpoint, get your scope letter, just plan ahead.
Kevin, you send your scope letter early to the GCs.
We do. We try to get it to them at least. We hope, when we're acting as a sub, which we do, we're not strictly a general contractor. We do mechanical work as a sub, electrical work as a sub. We'll try to get our scope letters 2 days ahead of time if they don't set a date, but if they ask for it ahead of time and want it by a certain date, we try to comply. Absolutely. This is important. If you want your proposal to be considered, right, don't send it to them 15 minutes before, especially on a complicated job. If I get scope letters 10 or 15 minutes before bid due at 2 o'clock and I've got 15 others that I'm trying to review, unless you're just screaming low, I'm not going to look at it. Right? Just don't have time. So get the scopes worked out. In that planning ahead process too, interact with the contractor. I love phone calls. I don't mind. You can call me all day long. I'll take a phone call and talk to you about your scope, right? Because it makes my job easier on the back end reviewing these if I know early what you're going to have and what you're not going to have. That makes sense? It really helps us from a planning standpoint. People look and say, well, why do you want your two scopes? Well, because if there's something you absolutely can't do, I'm not necessarily not going to give you a project. Okay? If there's something you can't do that doesn't fit your scope and we want it in that scope, but if you're a good contractor, you've got a good scope otherwise, good price, we'll figure out how to plug that gap, whatever it is you can't do. But I have to know that early, right? In order to plan ahead in my estimate and cover that gap. So keep to them early. Right? So just as important as your inclusions are, your exclusions are just as important, okay? So, let's see if this works. On the second page of the sample proposal you got is kind of where those exclusions are. I can't see it here, but what you're going to do is just as important as what you're not going to do is almost as more important than what you are going to do. Because if there's something you're not going to do, you need to know about it and plan ahead. And again, it may be something that you say if you can't do it, maybe it does affect how you look at it. But maybe we really need you to have that and you don't have it. If I had your scope ahead of time, I had a chance to read it. If there's something I don't like in your exclusions, I'll call you. I'll say, hey, what's wrong with this? Why can't you do this? Or why? And there's usually a lot of reasons. Some guys just say, hey, I don't like technology. I just don't do that type of work. Can't get that type of material. It's not made anymore. And then that tells me, oh, I need to call the owner, right? Because this is something that can't be done. So your exclusions are important. So make sure you think through them. Okay? And again, be clear and concise. It's no different than your inclusions. One thing that I see that's commonly excluded in a proposal that I like to always have is your bond. If you can bond a project. Okay? I think you're seeing it more and more, especially after the Great Recession we had. Companies went by the wayside. A lot of owners and general contractors are more in tune and concerned about who they work with. Right? You want to make sure you're viable, you're going to be around, you're going to finish the project. So we always ask, we have a policy, anything over $250,000 we bond back. So we ask you to bond the project. If you can't, we need to talk through that. And again, that's why I need to go through it. Right? You may be a darn good contractor. We may want to work with you, and we do that. We don't always, depending on the situation, make every contractor a $250,000 bond. If we know ahead of time, we know who you are, we've got a chance to visit with you, all that kind of stuff. So another reason to get your proposal early. But one of the things you exclude, if you exclude a bond or can't bond, let us know. If you exclude it and don't want the cost in your upfront proposal, then give us your bond rate. Right? Include that in your proposal. To me, it just saves me time, so I'm going to call you anyway. So save us the time, save yourself the time, and just offer it up. If you have the capability, offer it up. And then too, and again, no disrespect to any scope at all, but if you're a smaller scope, let's say you're a tile trim finish carpenter. You know, you're only doing maybe $1 million a year. Maybe you don't have the bonding capacity. That's okay. Just let us know. And if I know that up front, I can plan for it. But if I'm scrambling 15 minutes before bid to cover everybody's bond rate, it kind of hurts our process of what we're trying to do to get our bid ready. So just a little piece of advice on exclusions. Anybody have any questions about that? All right, moving on. So be sure to acknowledge any addenda that came out. Somewhere in the second page, again, I had a way that I could click this and scroll it, but it's not working here. But anyway, on the second page, I think you can see where we say there are no addenda acknowledged on this one because there were none issued. But find a place on that towards the end of your proposal, make a little tagline and say, hey, we acknowledge addenda 1 through whatever, or no addenda provided. And then obviously provide your proposal price. I like to make it stand out. I think we do a pretty good job when we have our handwritten proposals of showing us, hey, here's our price. Boom, there it is. And then if you have any alternates, we typically like to list. We didn't have any on this job, this particular example, but we like to put our alternates right beneath our main price. Okay, so they can say here's our lump sum. And then there's alternates. And you know what, don't be afraid in your proposal, if you have a voluntary alternate, in other words, anybody know what a voluntary alternate is? It's something you came up with. They may not be asking for it, but you found a better way to do it, or you can save them on a different kind of material option. List that out. Say, voluntary, add alternate, or deductive alternate, however you want to phrase it. Give them the price and maybe give a real short description of what that is, what that entails. Because believe me, we're all trying to win work, right? We're all trying to find the better way. We're all trying to find the best number. The best doesn't always mean low. So anything you can do to set yourself apart, alternates, list them out. And here's where we talk about spending a little time on already. Buy time for validity. So by that I mean, get it draft written, and give yourself time to have somebody else in your company review your proposal, whether it's your boss, your owner, your secretary, your coworker, peer. Somebody needs to review your proposal. I manage our department, but somebody always reviews my proposal. I want that. I want a good presentation, I want good spelling, I want good grammar, right? And so I want somebody to read through that and make sure I don't have the written down, right? Or and, or stuff, right? I mean, those are the most common mistakes, right? And it sounds trivial. I know you're a lot of laughing. It's presentation. You're trying to sell your job, sell your company, right? Sell your price. And I mentioned earlier, it's not for us. It's not always about low bid. I know you've heard that before. You go, yeah, right. But I'm telling you, it's really not. We're in a situation today at our company where we're going in for an interview with an industrial client. Of course, I couldn't be there because it came up after this was already scheduled, but we're going into an interview today with an industrial client, and we're trying to sell ourselves, right? We're trying to sell our proposal. Because our presentation was good, the numbers obviously good, or at least competitive, but they're interviewing the low couple because they're not just going to necessarily take the low bid. They looked at our proposal, they like what we're offering, we met the scope, we've exceeded the scope in some regards, and they want to know what we're going to do for that bottom line number. So it's not always about the low number. Okay? Well, I got off track there. What I was going to say was we had two sub numbers on a painting scope. They're 60 grand apart, and one of our estimators said, well, I feel more comfortable with this guy. I'm like, well, why? Or 60 grand more, why? And he went through it, and we agreed. So we're going to increase our price 60 grand because it's the right thing to do, because that guy has the best scope letter, right? We feel more comfortable with what that subcontractor. From our perspective, it's the right thing to do for this particular case. We don't always do that, I'm not going to lie. It's all about competition, right? It's all about winning the work. But there are cases where this proposal sells you, tells us you're meeting the spec, meeting the scope, we feel comfortable. Provide time to review and make sure it's right. Always have a concluding statement. Always tell them thank you. always say, thank you for this opportunity, right? Show them you're grateful. It's not every day you get people asking you for a bid, so when somebody asks you for a price, just thank them. And then give them your contact information in that last line. You know, email me, call me on my cell, whatever, provide that information. And then have a signature block. Be real simple, just have your company name, a couple spaces, retype your name, your title, and have a space where you can sign it. Okay? Any questions about any of this? Scope letters? Anything I didn't touch on that you'd like to hear about? All makes sense? Again, this is not the end-all be-all. I encourage you to develop your own format. This is just a suggestion. It works for us. It's worked for me for my whole career, kind of how I step through this. To me, I think, just to summarize real quick, the big things are, there's no reason to have spelling mistakes. You know, everybody has spell check, all right? There's no reason to use the same word 50,000 times when you have a thesaurus. Mix it up a little bit. All right, use some variety, okay? Use that thesaurus. If you're reading through your proposal and you see in 4 consecutive lines you use the same word 4 times, just click it, highlight it, click that thesaurus in Word or whatever, and find a different word that means the same thing, just to mix it up. To me, it's all about the presentation. And it shows me you're intelligent, right? It shows me you're well prepared and thought out. So, just a couple little tricks here. We don't try to repeat words unless it's a word like the, right? I mean, we can't replace the, but I mean, if I say propose 4 times, I'm looking for another word, okay? Offer, prepare, give up, something, something a little different than propose. Yeah.
Does it benefit anything to put your business license number up to the header? We just recently started doing that.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, it shows your license. What kind of work do you do?
Roofing.
Yeah, so you're probably doing some commercial work and stuff like that where the business license comes into play. You maybe pull a permit or something. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It can't hurt. I mean, it's to us. I mean, people we deal with invite to projects unless it's somebody, we've developed a lot of relationships over time with a lot of people, so we know they're qualified, but if you're a new business, you don't really know yet, yeah, it can't hurt, absolutely. Shows us your license to do business in that state. Good. Anything else? Yep. We'll move on. So I think we touched on a lot of this already, but real quick, so plan ahead. Be clear, specific, concise, but be thorough, right? Review, something you're going to talk about. Review your estimate before you write your proposal. Go back, you prepared your estimate, you prepared your cost. Give it a quick review before you write your proposal so you can remind yourself all the effort and work that you put into this thing and all the things your company's going to do. Because that'll help you write your proposal. Review your estimate before you start writing your proposal. And obviously review the project requirements before writing your proposal. Read the scope of work, the RFP, whatever may come, the facts, whatever the general contractor or owner sends you. And if there isn't one, then call them up and ask them. Say, hey, what do you want to see in this scope? You want a price from me for masonry. Okay, well, what do you want exactly? What do you want me to cover? You want me to cover scaffolding, right? You want me to cover keeping my workspace free and clear, or use a general contractor going to keep it clear so I have access. So you call them up and ask them if there aren't any specific project requirements. Okay. Write a draft. Don't sit down and write your proposal the first time and think that's the one you're sending in, because it won't be. If it is, it's probably got a mistake in it. Okay, I've been there, do it all the time. I write something, I go back and read it, so I don't want that in there. I mean, I use the word "the" 3 times in a row, right? So, write a draft and review it, and then guess what? Have someone else review it. Have someone else review it. They may not understand the scope. Again, no disrespect to anybody, but like our secretary or admin, whatever you want to call her, she doesn't really understand all the technical details of what we do. she's good at reading and reviewing and finding mistakes. She may not know if there's a mistake in her scope, but she'll know if there's a mistake or something wrong in the format of the proposal, spelling error, too many words, mispunctuation. So have someone else review. Use a spell check at the source. And then one thing to remember, you can learn to write effectively. You can learn it. It's not something that's naturally acquired. I had a technical writing class in college, and then when I graduated my first engineering job, I actually wrote specs for 6 months. So I got thrust into it very early and kind of learned how to write. So it can be learned. I like this little paragraph here. Think, write, edit, polish. If you do that, you'll win some work, I guarantee you. Any questions? Move on. All right, so the next topic we'll talk about are what we like to call pre-quals. You'll hear that, you may have heard it, may not have, you may know, heard that term before, pre-qual? Yes, no, okay. It's becoming more and more common. We're seeing it in public work, private work. We got asked to pre-qual for a job in Norman, Oklahoma. It was a $30 million water treatment plant. We thought, well, they're asking us to pre-qual, why not? So we turned in the pre-qual. We got pre-qualled. It turned out 7 were pre-qualled, only 4 bid the job, and we won it. So pre-quals are becoming more popular. They're important for you, in my opinion, because usually if they're pre-qualling, they're going to limit the number of contractors, and we all want that, right? You don't want to bid against 10 people, am I right? I mean, let's be honest. None of us do. We'd like to all be handed work, but the reality is it's not going to happen. So pre-quals are important. It gives you an opportunity to organize and present what you can deliver. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because pre-quals are technically something you're going to receive, and they're going to tell you what they want to see. So I really don't have a format necessarily to say, hey, this is how you write a pre-qual, because there's going to be an RFQ, which is a request for qualification that comes to your desk, and it's going to outline everything that owner, general contractor, wants to see from you to see if you're qualified to bid this project. So again, it's called an RFQ, request for qualification. And we've even got some, we don't do it a lot, but we do some subcontractor qualifications. How many here work as subcontractors? You guys ever seen any of these? From Jay Dunn or Callan Gordon, some of our people that are here today. A lot of those types of firms are going out and they're qualifying, good subcontractors and suppliers to bid on their work, and they usually keep a database, right? Procore, I think, you guys all get the Procore emails, we get them all the time. They want you to update this, that, or the other safety record. And then, like I said, we're seeing it more and more in municipal agencies and government contracts. These agencies are past the time when they hire low bid and that contractor can't do the work or defaults or whatever. They want to know up front who's bidding their work and if they're qualified to do it. So it's pretty important. Any questions on that? Oh, you know, thanks. All right. So typically, and again, these are typical, okay? There's no, each RFQ is going to be tailored to that project and from that on. These are just some general things we see in pre-quals to help you out. You want to write an introduction letter. This is your opportunity, your one shot. I think I put an example in here, but it's your one chance to tell them what you can do. Right? And they can be lengthy. I mean, our pre-qual letters, introduction letters, are usually a page, page and a half. Because we want to make sure up front, when they flip to page 1, the intro letter, they get a flavor of what we're going to do, what we can do, and what we've done in the past. They're going to ask for your company profile, background, experience. So, how big are you? How many PMs do you have? How many estimators do you have? How much volume a year do you do? What types of work do you do? Can you do type of work that's part of our upcoming project? They're going to ask for relevant project experience. So they're going to say, all right, we're going to build this $30 million water treatment plant. How many projects have you done similar to this? And you're going to tell them. Nice little Excel spreadsheet with your letterhead or whatever, right? They're going to put that in the tab and they're going to run it. And before I go on too much further, if you don't have any of this stuff already, it's a good idea to start putting it together. We keep a folder, and it's an electronic folder of all of our pre-qual stuff. So, and in all the past pre-quals we've done, because some of the stuff after time becomes redundant, you can just go grab and pull from the past pre-quals. It saves you a lot of time putting these together. And then really all you have to do is update things like personal resumes, safety records, and stuff like that. So just a little tip there, is if you don't have any of this stuff put together, start putting it together. If you have some free time. If you have some free time. If you're like us, we're busy, but it's always good to have it ready, because sometimes you may get a request and they want your pre-qual the next day or 3 days or whatever. Usually it's not the case, but it does happen. It'd be nice to have some of the stuff on hand. In addition to that, if you go into a meeting with an owner, you may just take some of the stuff with you. Pre-qual yourself, offer. Hey, here it is. This is what we can do. Anyway, I digress, sorry. They're going to ask for your safety record. I know, especially in municipalities, they say they care about safety, they really don't. We're huge on safety. The type of work we do, we have to be. So our safety records can continually updated and continually available for anybody. Equipment resources. Most of you, if you're a sole proprietor or own your own business, you probably have this list already. If you're a PM, you probably know what your company has. Estimator, you probably know. But keep a list, right? Keep an updated list of what equipment you have. And it doesn't mean it has to be available right then and there. Just what you have. They want to see if you're geared up to do the kind of work you're doing. They're usually going to ask for this: bonding capacity and insurance. If you're unable to bond, there's nothing wrong with that. Small contractors, we get it, but for larger projects, I mean, it's a must. And then your insurance, everybody has to have insurance, so know what your insurance program is and keep your certificate handy and be ready to provide that. On bigger, more complex jobs, they're going to ask for financials. So, again, if you're a sole proprietor or own your own business, you're probably updating your financials quarterly, maybe bi-yearly. Keep a financial statement handy, ready to turn in. And then a biggie down here, I put it last, but it's important. If your company's won any awards or you have any letters of recommendation, we've won several awards here the last couple of years for some design build stuff we've done, for some mechanical work we've done, so we'll keep those certificates, make copies of them electronically, so we can include them in our books, show the owner that we're winning awards for the type of work we do. Any questions on any of this? Again, I apologize. When it comes to this kind of stuff, these RFQs are so tailored and specific, and it's hard for me to tell you how to write one. These are kind of the things to look for and address. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, sometimes on these RFQs, they're going to limit you to pages. Okay, sometimes. And if they do, then you got to be cognizant of that. You got to catch that in the RFQ. But if they don't, and they say, hey, sometimes they give you a tab that says, provide any other information that's relevant that you think might help set your company apart. In fact, we're looking at one right now for Johnson County Wastewater that says exactly that. Provide us a list of anything else, documentation that sets your company apart. Pictures. I mean, pictures say 1,000 words, don't they? They really do. So like on our cover sheet for these, or our, usually these pre-quals, you put them in binders, right? 3 in binders of books, and they'll want 6 copies. So our front binder sheet is always very nice. I should have brought an example, sorry. We always have a picture of a plant, some kind of, if it's a wastewater or water treatment plant, we'll provide a picture of an overall plant that we built, format it real nice, like we do in the PowerPoint here, and we'll put the name of the RFQ, the name of the project, the owner, the date, and all that right on the front. And then they look at that picture and they go, wow, this guy's built that. So if you do masonry work and you're asking to get pre-qual, take a picture of a nice masonry wall you built, slap it on the front and tell them what job this is. Yeah, this is it. One light tower. Absolutely. Any questions on this? At all? So here's the sample of the pre-qual letter, introductory letter that we wrote to the City of Norman. You can read through it and you kind of see how I gave you this because this may give you some ideas on how to present your company. But Again, this was a pre-qual, we were asked by the engineer who knew us from the national president, said, hey, would you guys be interested in pre-qualing for a project down in Norman? We said, absolutely. And now in this particular case, I didn't know exactly who you were sending it to. I tried to find out, couldn't, so I had to put it to whom it may concern. I hate doing that, I do. I even said that earlier, but in this particular case, we tried, and they just said, just send it to us. And sometimes too, your audience may be wide enough, and maybe 5 or 6 people are gonna read this, maybe you don't address it to one person, so know your audience too. In this particular case, the engineer, the city, and some other people are gonna review the pre-quals. So you may concern it's not a bad thing, but you see, hopefully you see this makes a good first impression. It's very concise, but it gives an overall picture of what we can do and the types of projects we've done, and how we can fit into this project. Always provide an affirmative qualification statement. By that I mean always tell them whether you think you are or not, or whether you think, well, I don't know if I can get it. I'm gonna give it a shot. Tell them you're pre-qualified, right? We are pre-qualified, okay? And here I say, enclosed, you will find our affirmative responses to all requested information for projects involving water and wastewater. And tell them, we are giving you what you want in this pre-qual. Okay, you've asked for it, here it is. It sets the stage in their mind that everything they're looking for is in the pre-qual. Summarize your company's capabilities. Again, clear, thorough, but concise. Like we talked about, you don't want their eyes to drift, right? You don't want them to start just flipping to the meat of it. This is your chance to sell your company, so sell it here. This describes our current relevant experience, what we're doing currently that meets the intent of their project, and how what we're doing will benefit their project down the road. And then it prepares the reviewer, whoever's going to review this pre-qual. This sets the stage and prepares them for what's inside. Right? So be clear, concise, and thorough. Set their mindset. Tell them, make them believe you're qualified. Right? I'm qualified. Here it all is. Here it is. And get their mind prepared to review the information that's inside, that what's inside there does meet the intent of the RFQ. Okay. Any questions on this? Always be positive, right? It's not about what we can't do, it's about what we can do. Right? That's how you want to work. Any questions on RFQs? Is that information useful? Not useful? Yes, no? All right, let's go on to the last one. We'll touch just a little bit on design build proposals. Again, these are nebulous because everyone's different, every project's different, every owner wants to see a different set of criteria. But these are some things that we think are pretty standard in most design build proposals that you'll see out there. So this maybe help give you a flavor for what you're looking for and kind of how to approach one when you get one. So obviously the first thing you're going to do is you're going to respond to the request. You're going to get an RFP, a request for proposal, all right? And you're going to prepare a response to that RFP. Generally, we see them organized similar to RFQs. They ask for a lot of the same information, same type of information. It includes a statement of qualifications that you're being positive. You're affirming to that owner, general contractor, whoever, I can do this work. I am qualified. And you want me on your team. All right? And then a lot of times I ask for an org chart because this is a big deal in design build. They want to see who the players are, who's the general contractor, who's the engineer, how is his team going to mesh together, what's the flow beneath that, are they able to staff the project, do they have the appropriate personnel, blah, blah, blah. So they always ask for an org chart. And then the one thing that's different to each one is the technical approach. I mean, depending on what type of project it is, whether it's a high-rise, site development, healthcare project, whatever, that approach is going to be different. So that's why in this type of scenario for this class, really can't talk to you much about the technical approach because everyone's different. But just be aware that there's going to be a request for you to describe and write out 3, 4, 5 page requirement of how you're going to design and build this job. And most of these design build proposals set a page limit, right? It's not wide open. Some are, but usually they're not, because they don't want to get books this thick. They want them to keep them short. And they've probably got 5 or 6 of these things to review. They've probably got a team of 5 or 6 people. They want to get through them quickly. They want to be able to find the information fast and understand the information so they can make the right decisions on who they're going to work with. It'll ask for your past experience. Sometimes it'll ask for your past experience as a design builder, or have you been part of a design build team? Has anybody in here been part of a design build? Anybody? What type of project was it? Government. So a lot of times, the RFPs, they want to know if you have any experience. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. Everybody starts somewhere, okay? If you don't have any experience, don't be afraid to go after design build projects. The world's heading that way. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and will continue to do so. I'm the advisory group member and chair for the Water Design Build Council. So we focus on design build delivery and best practices and helping develop documents for design build projects tailored strictly to water and wastewater. So it's becoming more prevalent, and it's real. So if you haven't ever gotten involved, then try to get involved. They're fun to do. Number one, they're fantastic projects. They can make good money if they're done right. It's fun stuff. So don't be afraid. Just if you don't have past experience, sell your product, sell yourself and your company in other ways. Make sure you get involved with that. And then there's some good resources out there. Again, I mentioned Water Design Build Council. They've got a website. Just Google it, go to it. There's all kinds of, again, it's geared towards water and wastewater, but the documents are very generic. They can be used for any type of business. And then, of course, DBI. Feel free to reach out to those 2 websites to learn some more. And there's some good ideas on best practices. Water Design Build Council on our website. We've got some white papers to help you see how to organize RFPs and stuff. Any questions there? So we're kind of to the summary. I'm a little ahead of schedule, but in summary, we talked about the role of an estimator, writing skills. I mean, it's important to be able to put together a good proposal. You're not just somebody crunching numbers. In my opinion, an estimator, we showed you that slide earlier, you know, you're a business developer, you're solving problems, right? You're selling the work, and you're figuring out the cost. So when we look to hire an estimator, we don't want somebody that just sits in a cube and crunches numbers all day. We want somebody that's going to interact with people, be a face of the company. It's not just me, it's our team. We have a team of 9 estimators, so very important. Every one of them is important in my mind. I value every one of our guys and gals, so we like to understand that they're helping us solve. Know your role and learn. Try to learn some writing skills. We talked about the different types of proposals: scope, price proposal, qualification, design build. Is there any other type of proposal maybe that I didn't touch on that's out there that I don't know about? Anybody? Okay. Plan ahead. Make writing your proposal part of your standard operating procedure, or whatever you want to call it, your process. I know when you get an estimate, you know at the end of the day, whatever type of job that is, estimate that is, how is it being presented? Do I have to write a letter? Do I have to fill out a bid form? Do I have to fill out a bid form and still provide exclusions and inclusions, right? Sometimes there's a bid form, and I didn't really touch on that, maybe I should have, but sometimes there's a bid form, but yet you want to attach your inclusions and exclusions. And that's okay too. Just follow the same guidelines, still be clear, concise. Organize your thoughts. Think about it. You finish your estimate, you review your numbers, gone through it. Organize your thoughts. Think about, how do I want to sell this? What are the key points to me selling this work, right? It's again, it's not always about just the $1. I know you guys, everybody laughs because sometimes at the end of the day it is, but it's really not. If you can sell yourself over another company, put yourself in, we like to call it getting to the table. Anybody ever heard that phrase? get to the table, right? Get to the table where you can bargain with somebody or negotiate or have a chance to sell yourself in person. You're organizing your thoughts and presenting your proposal in a manner that gets you to the table is key. Be clear and concise. Use good grammar. Sorry, I'm picky, but our staff gets so mad at me because I'll tear their proposal apart. I'm like, well, why'd you write this? Why'd you write that? They get all mad at me, but it's about the presentation. And they say, you're too picky. Well, no, details. Right? We're estimators. We need to be in the details. Be in the details in your proposal. Okay? Good grammar. And then review it. Review. Don't send something out that hasn't been reviewed without time for somebody else to look at it. Right? I think that's it. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
I've come to the situation a couple times where the general contractor, after we get the job, doesn't want us to include the scope letter in the contract.
Will not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
It's a good point, because it happens to us too. You've got to sit down and just negotiate. Fine. You go back and look at your proposal and what's really important to you and what's not. There's always some give and take. The reason they don't want you to put your proposal in there, I can tell you this, I know for a fact, is because they don't like your exclusions, right? They want to hold you to their standard conditions, general conditions. So what you have to get to is a point where you understand what their terms and conditions are. Okay? AIA contract, right, or the EJCDC, or, we have our own contract form, just like I'm sure McCown, I know McCown Gordon does, Jay done all this for they don't want anything in your proposal counteracting what's in their terms and conditions. That's why they don't want you to attach it. So what you have to do is be savvy enough to review their T's and C's and negotiate the things you don't like in there. And they'll negotiate with you to a point. There's some back and forth. There's some things that they can live with, and there's some things they can't. Same with us. So that's the best advice I can give is to sit down and talk to them and ask them, well, what don't you like about this? Why won't you let me attach it?
What bid us is a design build. We clarified what equipment we had, and then the engineer designed more equipment, and it ended up costing us a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a bad deal. So here's what you have to do then. And now I understand where you're coming from. You have to make sure in some way or some form that your scope, okay, is included as an attachment. You have to make sure. And if they won't do it, then it may be somebody you don't want to do business with. I'm sorry, because there's an underlying reason there, right? There's a reason they don't want to attach that. And it's probably not in your favor. So at that point, you kind of also got to evaluate, well, are these people I really want to work with? Because if they are, they're going to sit down with you and they're going to try to work that out. And granted, look, we're all about reducing risk. That's what this whole world's come to, reducing risk. And that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to put all the risk off them onto you. That's all the more reason to be clear and concise, okay? And make sure that you're thorough in your scope. But yeah, you just have to sit down at the table and say, look guys, I've at least got to have this. There's always give and take. Hopefully you can get to some common ground. But you've got to try to sit down and say, yeah, I need this, this, and this in my scope letter. Got to have it. If they say can't do it, they say, then what assurances are you going to give me that if this, and this changes, then I'm going to be compensated for it? If they can't answer that question, you may want to walk away from the job.
You know,
I know it's not the answer you want to hear.
To speaking and versus email is completely different. So,
I'm sorry, what was
I
that?
said, whatever happens in a conversation never seems to, everyone ends up with amnesia. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I'm saying you got to sit down with them and say, hey, I need this. Okay, this is part of our. We're going to be a team here. I've got to have this in here. Here's why. And unless you can assure me that these items will be handled somewhere else based on this language somehow, in the language, you can assure me that in this document, in writing. I've got to have it. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're the right number and the right scope, you play a little hardball, they'll come back to you. We had to do it. Not a lot. We tried to play hardball. The company came in and said, we went back and looked and said, okay, we can live with this, we can't live with that. Okay, fine. Got a deal, you got a great job, and we move on. So at the end of the day, if they really want to do business with you, to sit down and talk to you. But don't just accept that, because that example you gave is exactly what will happen. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I got one curiosity question, because obvious from what we're looking at here that you're a very good writer. So
Thank you. I
when you've got
appreciate
a estimating team, do you try to keep them in the same format so that owners and
We do, yeah. I mean, this is kind of how this letter's set up. Is kind of how we all approach our letters. Yeah. We do. Again, like I said, we have some standard operating procedures, believe it or not, that are written down in a book, and we try to all stick.
you
to it.
review a lot of them then, huh?
I do, yeah. As the estimating manager, it's my job. I got to make sure. I mean, I'm on the hook if it goes out and it's wrong. So.
There you go.
And I have a boss I answer to too, and so he's doubling me. Was this helpful, anybody, honestly? This was kind of a hard thing for me to put together because it's so nebulous. I mean, things are so different, there's different types of work. I was trying to provide information I think could be generically useful, and I hope it was. So.